Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're tackling something pretty foundational, the self-alignment framework, or SAF. Think of it as, well, a universal blueprint for ethical decisions. Our goal here really is to give you a clear look at how this single structured system, this closed loop, can work for almost anything a big company, even advanced AI.
Yeah.
We've got sources that lay out the whole architecture, its deep philosophical roots, Plato, Kant, and then break down to 5 parts: values, intellect, will, conscience, and spirit. It sounds like a lot, but we'll pull out the really key stuff.
Yeah, and what strikes me right away is how it bridges ancient ideas with very current problems. It's designed to give complex systems, whether human or machine, a way to constantly check themselves, to self-regulate, and that closed-loop idea is crucial. It's meant to stop things going off track. What the source is called value drift. It builds feedback right into the process, aiming for, clarity and integrity all the way through.
Okay, good. So let's unpack that. To really get the structure, we kind of have to go back.
Right.
Back to the origins, this sort of philosophical family tree of these ideas. We're talking ancient Greece.
Exactly. Way back you had Plato, Aristotle. They were really mapping the human mind. They saw this internal conflict, basically, between reason, the intellect, and our desires and appetites. And the whole goal was figuring out how to use that reason to become, a good person, a virtuous person.
Yeah.
For a long time, it felt like strengthening the rational mind was the whole answer.
But that didn't quite match reality, did it? People knew what was right, rationally, but didn't always do it. And that leads us, centuries later, to St. Augustine. He asked the killer question.
Right. How can someone know what's right? Their intellect has it sorted, but they still choose the wrong thing. What's that gap? Why don't they follow through?
That disconnect.
That's the core problem Augustine tackled. He argued, look, intellect isn't the boss. There has to be something else, an independent power, the will. That's the part that actually chooses, regardless of what reason says or desire pulls towards. Adding the will, this idea of intellect guiding and will deciding, that was absolutely key to explaining, why we don't always do what we know is best.
Okay, so that sets up the basic structure that dominated for, 1,500 years?
Yeah.
Intellect, will, and then some kind of moral feedback mechanism,
Yeah.
which later often gets called conscience. You had thinkers like Aquinas, Kant, refining it, but that trio was pretty much the foundation. Now, fast forward, let's bring in the founder of SAMWR. The sources mentioned this interesting background, El Salvador, U.S. tech career, but always this deep philosophical interest. And that blend seems crucial for how SAF turned out.
Yeah, it's that mix. The founder took that classical model, intellect, will, conscience, but made it into a very strict sequential process. This is a key difference from a lot of classical thought. While Aquinas was clearly influential, the founder set up this specific order. Intellect proposes, then will decides and acts, then conscience judges. That sequence is vital for making it work as a system, especially for something non-human like AI.
And that brings us to this really interesting, maybe slightly uncomfortable idea, the conscience compromise. Because as you look at it, in us, in humans, conscience feels proactive, doesn't it? It's that nagging feeling before you act, the gut check.
Exactly. That immediate emotional warning is how we often self-correct in real time. But the founder, very deliberately, put conscience after the will in this framework's flow.
Okay, hold on. So the system intentionally weakens that proactive emotional part of conscience. Why? Isn't that sacrificing something really important just for the sake of a neat diagram? Are we creating a great auditor but a potentially slow moral responder?
That is the tension. And the sources suggest the founder really wrestled with this. The rationale, it seems, was purely systematic. To make a closed loop that's clear, auditable, especially for a machine, you need discrete steps. So, intellect proposes, will executes. Then, and only then, conscience performs its review of the action already taken. It sacrifices that immediate, fuzzy, emotional foresight for a clean, logical, step-by-step process. It becomes a judge after the fact.
Right. For a machine that needs clear instructions and auditable logs, that makes a certain kind of engineering sense, even if it feels less human. But okay, even with that compromise, one piece was still missing to capture the bigger picture, the long-term performance. That led to the spirit.
Yes, the spirit. If the first 3 form the immediate action feedback loop, spirit looks at the whole pattern over time. It tracks the system's overall coherence, its alignment health. Is it consistently living up to its values? That accumulated record, that's the spirit. It reflects the system's character, its identity.
Choosing the word spirit is bold, given all the baggage it carries. Why that specific term?
Well, according to the sources, it was chosen because it best captured that idea of the manifestation of alignment. When the system works well, When it's consistently aligned with its core values, the result is this sense of harmony, purpose, inner coherence that's the spirit shining through, so to speak. The sources even point to that biblical line, Luke 1.47, "My soul magnifies the Lord and my spirit rejoices," as an example of this perfect, holistic alignment where inner state, outer action, and defined values all match up.
Okay, so we have these 5 elements: values, intellect, will, conscience, spirit, with the roots stretching way back but arranged in this very modern, systematic way. How do they work together in practice? The founder used a really helpful analogy here, right? Comparing it to a government structure.
Yeah, the constitutional government analogy. It's brilliant because it clarifies the role of each part and hammers home why you need that separation of powers for the whole thing to be stable and resilient.
Let's walk through it. Starting at the top, the absolute foundation, values. In the analogy, this is the Constitution. It's the set of non-negotiable principles, defined externally, maybe from philosophy, religion, or an organization's mission statement. This is the anchor. Without it, alignment is impossible. You just get drift.
Makes sense. Then, following the flow, you have the intellect, that's the legislative branch. Its job is to be rational, creative, to figure out how to act in a way that lines up with those core values, with the Constitution. It proposes the plan. And importantly, it needs development learning, experience, reflection to do its job well. It can't just be static.
Right. Then comes the will.
Right.
This is the executive branch. It's about decisive action, taking the plan the intellect came up with and making it happen quickly, without second guessing at this stage.
Oh.
It turns the should do into did. And just like a real executive, it needs discipline, right? Self-control, perseverance, so it doesn't get sidetracked by immediate impulses or pressures that conflict with the intellect's plan.
Precisely. Okay, so the action's been taken, now you need the review. That's the conscience, playing the role of the judicial branch. It looks back at the action, compares it to the intellect's original plan and the fundamental values, the Constitution. It's the auditor. Did we stick to the plan? Did the outcome align with our principles? It signals misalignment, maybe discomfort or guilt in a person, or alignment, which might feel like peace or coherence. That's the critical feedback for the next cycle.
And wrapping it all up, integrating the whole process over time, is the spirit. It's like the overall spirit of the nation. It's not one action, but the cumulative result. The character that emerges from consistent alignment or misalignment. It reflects the system's long-term integrity and health.
And the crucial takeaway from this analogy is the checks and balances. You can't just remove one faculty. Take out intellect and will acts blindly, that's tyranny. Remove conscience and there's no feedback loop, no correction, leading to chaos or drift. All 5 need to be there, distinct but interconnected, for the system to be resilient and self-correcting.
Okay, we've got the history, the structure, the analogy. Let's talk about relevance. Why should someone listening care about this framework? The sources make a point that SAF was actually conceived before the AI boom as a map of human cognition.
That's right. It started as an attempt to model how we work, or perhaps how we should work. AI just happened to be the perfect testbed because of its need for clear, logical structures. So the goal isn't, to give machines a soul or anything like that. It's about engineering faithful moral actors, that's the term he used, creating systems or personas within AI that can reliably act according to a set of principles with integrity and coherence. It's about building trustworthy systems.
Let's get concrete. Where can this actually be applied? The most obvious place seems to be AI alignment and machine ethics.
Absolutely. This is a direct blueprint. Imagine an autonomous car facing an ethical dilemma. Its SAF-based intellect would evaluate options against its core values, safety first, follow laws, etc. It proposes the least harmful action. The will executes it. Then, critically, its internal conscience module audits the outcome. Did the action actually align with the safety principle as intended? This feedback loop helps prevent bias creep, unintended consequences, or hallucinations that deviate from its core programming. It's a pathway to safer, more reliable AI.
And that same structure, that rigor, it applies beyond machines too, doesn't it, to human organizations, like in leadership and governance.
Definitely. Think about a company setting a new policy. The leadership team, Intellect, designs it based on company values, Constitution. The operational departments will implement it. Then, internal audit or an ethics committee, Conscience, needs to review. Is this policy, in practice, actually upholding our stated values? It provides a clear framework for accountability. It moves ethics from vague statements to a verifiable process, which can build trust, whether it's in corporations or governments.
And it's not just for big systems. It scales down to the individual level for personal growth.
For sure. This can be a very practical tool. If you consciously define your own core values, your personal constitution, you can use this loop daily. Use your intellect to plan your actions based on those values. Use your will to follow through. And then pay attention to your conscience, that inner feedback. Where did you feel aligned? Where did you feel that tension or discomfort? That tells you where you might have deviated. It offers a structured way to build self-awareness and live more purposefully.
Finally, there's the application in compliance and auditing. This seems pretty powerful.
Yeah, because the process is so clearly defined. Intellect proposes, will acts, conscience reviews. It creates a potentially verifiable standard for ethical behavior. An organization using SAF could, in theory, demonstrate how its decisions align with its stated principles step by step. It offers a way to make ethical commitments more transparent and measurable, moving beyond just trusting intentions to showing the actual process of alignment. It provides a method to demonstrate character through process.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the self-alignment framework really presents ethical intelligence not as some vague ideal, but as a systematic process. It's grounded in history, structured for clarity, and emphasizes that alignment isn't a one-off achievement. It's a constant loop of action, reflection, and correction.
Right, it's that continuous refinement. And that brings us back, actually, to that fascinating point we discussed earlier, the conscience compromise. Since the SAF architecture deliberately shifts the conscience to be a judge after the will acts, sacrificing some of that immediate, proactive, emotional warning for the sake of a clear system, well, what does that mean long-term? How can a system, human or AI, truly transform itself in real time if its primary reflection mechanism is designed to look backward? Especially when faced with strong temptations or immediate pressures that push the will to act before a full ethical review can happen. That's the ongoing challenge, isn't it? How to balance systematic rigor with real-time moral agility. Something for you to think about.